Wild Health is about optimizing you. We use genomics, blood work, biometrics, microbiome assessment, many other tests, and a conversation with you to come up with a full health optimization plan. What's the perfect diet, exercise, and supplement plan for you and only you? The Wild Health podcast is about optimizing all of us. Here we cover the cutting-edge science that gives you the base to be able to apply the personalized plan we give you as a patient. To sign up as a patient, go to wildhealth.com. Or if you're a physician or health coach and you want to learn how to do this for your patients, we're happy to help as well. Wildhealth.com for all the information on becoming a patient or working with us.
All right. What's up, you guys? It's Erin Faules, one of the Wild Health physicians, and I have two really awesome Wild Health patients here today that I'm excited for you guys to get to know, Julie and Susan. So this is going to be such a cool episode because I think everybody is going to relate a lot, or not everybody, but different people are going to relate to kind of what we're going to talk about because it's really going to be at eye level. As far as I think what I hear in so many patient stories of different things that you're going to hear threaded throughout today's conversation. These are two busy mamas. They've got hugely busy work lives. They're coming at this from a couple of different types of motivations into what led to really wanting to optimize their health. And they've kind of become health experts. I mean, to the extent where I think more so than many health professionals that I know, they've educated themselves on the newest data and tech and all these different things. And I think you're going to really enjoy this story. So Julie is a mama. Let me say they're friends from college that have kind of rekindled this relationship later in life. Not that they rekindled it entirely, but they've really bonded over health later in life, which has been really, really cool. Julie is a mama trying to keep up with her young teenage son. She's got a really busy work life where she also sees kind of end of life. She's also involved in or later in life, like healthcare facilities. She's also involved in caregiving for her mama as she ages, and so there's a lot of witnessing of what can happen with chronic illness, I would say, and some motivation there, if that's safe to say. She also is really, really passionate about kind of helping others with their health. It sounds like I'll let her share a bit more about that. Susan is also with us today, and Susan is also a busy mama, also with, it sounds like, a teenage son as well as a pre-med son who, I love this, she had him read Outlive by Dr. Peter Attia before he started the pre-med route so he could educate himself on kind of optimized healthcare 3.0, which is so awesome. She has extremely busy work life, long hours, lots of travel, really trying to optimize herself to kind of fire on all cylinders. And Susan grew up with a lot of people in her life passing away at an early age, which put a spin on, really looking to optimize her health where she didn't necessarily see that witnessed in her life. So kind of forging along this new territory and kind of blazing a trail in her lineage, it sounds like, which is pretty incredible in terms of, really looking to kind of optimize her health span and her lifespan. So that's just a little tiny nugget of what I've already talked about with these beautiful ladies, and I'll let them kind of take it away if you guys want to share a little bit more about yourselves, and then we'll kind of dive into some of this in a little bit more detail, guys.
Okay, Susan, do you want me to start?
Sure.
I'll start. Okay, so my name is Julie. As Erin said, I am 56. I've always been interested in health and wellness. So I think any of my friends along my life probably will say Julie's big hobby is diet, nutrition, exercise, all the things. About 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, MS, multiple sclerosis. And when I got diagnosed with that, it was a gut punch because I thought, I've been so healthy my whole life. I've done all the right things, didn't drink too much, ate really well, exercised, did all the things that we're told in conventional medicine that you're supposed to do to stay healthy. So I thought, okay, this just happened to me. I need to take control. So I really doubled down on health. I knew about Wild Health. I listened to a podcast a few months after I was diagnosed, and it happened to talk about wild health again. So I thought that was a sign. I signed up for it. I did all the things. I read Outlive, Atomic Habits. I got an Aura ring, all the things that I wasn't really doing. I was doing all the basic things. So I really like up leveled it. And after doing all of those things, I've really seen results. So, as any sort of self described health coach who's not really a health coach does, I talk to all of my friends about it at nauseum, including Susan. And as Erin said, we were reconnected. We would see each other every year at reunions, lunches, things like that. But we really got connected once I was diagnosed with MS and started talking about health and wellness and exercising together regularly. uh, so she and I started talking about all of the different health hacks through podcasts and things like that. So it's been a lot of fun.
I
So
love
that's
it.
my story.
I love it. See, you filled in so many wonderful gaps that I miss. It's hard to encapsulate someone in 2 minutes. Okay, Susan, take it away. Give
Yeah,
me
I
give
mean,
me some more tidbits.
Jules is spectacular and amazing, and she does drag all of us along on her journey, which is amazing. Um, as you mentioned, I've had a lot of young deaths in my family: mother, father, brother, grandparents, cousins, all super healthy people who just dropped dead, in their
Right.
40s and 50s. So, I'm 54. I'm 2 years behind Julie. And and I will always be 2 years behind Julie, lovely. But, you're y as we get older, really, the Dr. Tia's book really was such an eye opener for me. It was such an amazing tome around how healthcare in this world, in the industry, is really not where it needs to be to look at systemic issues, and a lot of what happened in my family were systemic issues, that weren't deeply looked into, and so this jury, I think that kicked it off. Wild Health has just been amazing. I mean, Carl is just all on another level, and Steve's my health coach, who is amazing. But what they've done for me is, it feels like, I got an MBA. I feel like I'm getting an MBA in health and wellness and longevity. And it's so data driven and rich that, I'm lucky enough to be a CHRO at our company. So I've incorporated all of that into what we do in our company. We've got like big partnership, our CEO, all of us, we've built wellness into the program because what I'm learning at
Wow.
Wild Health. And Cigna's a big partner in that is like all over it. So because wellness can't be a after work thing, because some of us work 100 hours a week. So it's
Mhm.
like you spend most of your day at work. It's how do you incorporate this in all aspects of your life, and how do employers partner and engage in that, I think is a really big opportunity for companies and individuals and employees. So we love it. We have a gym here. Everyone gets to use it. It's free. We really, really like to integrate these things into what we do. So excited on the journey, especially going through it with Julie. She's hilarious and crazy. Um, and God love her. We love her for it because she really helps us on this journey.
You guys are awesome. I love your points, Susan, about how this can benefit the workplace. And like what stuck out to me is like this can't be an after work thing. And I think you can put that into so many scenarios that you can't like this can't be the thing you do once your kids grow up. Like this can't be the thing you do when I mean fill in the blank, with whatever takes up your time as your priority, right? And Carl and I were actually just talking about this at a recent talk we did of, we were talking with people who are extremely financially illiterate, and we were like, what would it look like if you invested the same amount of energy in your health portfolio that you did in your financial portfolio for 1 year? Like, what would that look like if you really went, put that as your top priority, period? And what I see I work with a lot of women and I don't mean to stereotype, but oftentimes I think women can give a lot of themselves in our culture. Because oftentimes even when we have big jobs and firing on all cylinders at work, also we're doing a lot at home too. And not that dads aren't. I don't mean that in any kind of a way. I just sometimes women have a tendency in my experience to put their health and their emotional needs lower on the priority list. And I almost always see that come out in their health in the long run. And so I love this point of like it has to be the priority, right? Like this can't be an afterthought or you will like see the results of that ultimately. Whether it's insidious and you know it's happening or not, or something that happens suddenly, like what Susan has tragically witnessed. And maybe that had nothing to do with people's actions that they took. You know, some things can just be just terribly tragic. But if you don't take actions for your health, you almost certainly will see the repercussions of that downstream. And it's much easier to look at what's going on in the short term. So I love this idea of integrating it and weaving it into these like lives, because what we all seem to have in common, at least um, people that are coming to better their health tend to have things going on well in other areas of their life as well. But what people have in common that are kind of high functioners is they're busy. But even everybody's busy, right? Like no matter what you've got going on, like people are busy. And so it's a really easy excuse. Um, and not even an excuse, it's a easy thing to fall back on. You know, I find myself doing it. I don't know if you guys find yourselves doing it. I've got a 6-month-old at home and I'll be like, "Oh, I didn't sleep as well," or like, "I've got work going on," or "The baby needs something." Like, it's easy to fall back on that. And so when you have those systems in place at work or at home or with a friend that you can like bond with and help keep you accountable, I think it can be really, really powerful. Have you guys found that in terms of your relationship in your friendship of having that support system like set in place? Has that been helpful in terms of having a person to bounce this off of? So you're not just like the one weird person in your family doing all the biohacking, but you have like this community around you. Has that been helpful for you?
I will say definitely. I mean, I talk to everybody about health if they'll listen. Um, I love to hear about other people's health journeys too, and give them some insight into mine. The one thing that stood out that you were talking about, Erin, it's the customization too that Wild Health gives you. I was thinking about this is that when I was thinking that I was super healthy, right? I was doing all of the cookie cutter things that people do. I was exercising in quotes. I was eating well in quotes. I was taking some supplements, maybe vitamin D, fish oil, I don't know, things that I thought you should take to be healthy. But I think what Wild Health and Carl, who again is the most amazing doctor, and I have Ariana as my health coach, and she's amazing. Huge shout out to Ariana, is really making sure that it's customized to you. So you're not taking every supplement that you could possibly take. You're taking ones that you should take because you might have with the genetic testing that you have done at the beginning, you might have a risk for CVD, cardiovascular disease. So you might need some methylation help with some B vitamins. And so that to me was the most helpful thing. It's also the types of exercise you should be doing, like also based on your age. So Susan and I, one of the big things that we bond on is the fact that we really double down on strength training. So I used to think, oh, you just got to get out for some kind of exercise, whether it's a Zumba class, walking, whatever. Now I really think about it in terms of, okay, did I get my 3 hours of weight training in this week? Did I get my XYZ amount of zone 2 cardio? You know, that kind of thing. So that's kind of where I come from. Susan.
Yeah, no, Jules is again amazing. She is, I would say, Erin, as you were talking about, boy, as mothers, sometimes we put these health things off to, until all these other things are taken care of, which there's never an end to it. Julie's like the
Right.
poster child of having always understood you got to focus on self to take care of everybody else. And
I
she's
love it.
always been like healthy and eating right and all these different things. I'm the poster child of, gosh, everyone's needs gonna get met before my need gets met. So it all
No.
culminated until like I'm 54 and I've got these health issues. And I'm like, oh crap. And I still go 100 hours a week because I love to work and I love what I do. But it is the more recent research that's come out and like companies like Wild Health, what they're doing because things are like more data driven now and more research driven, as opposed to, hey, here's the pyramid that the FDA tells you to follow. Now it's like there's a why behind what we do and how we do it. And I'm a very data driven person. So if you tell me, oh, you got to work out you got to do strength training 3 hours a week, I'm gonna be like, why? Tell me the
Yeah.
data that shows
Yeah.
it's actually correlated to X, Y, and Z. And I think, even a decade ago, I'm not sure that they could have articulated it the same way that it's articulated in physician now. I only wish what Wild Health does and what other 3.0 doctors do, I only wish we had learned this when we were younger.
Mm.
Because, I mean, it's never too late, and they always say it's never too late, and I believe that. But I thought, "Oh my gosh," before we had our first child and before our bodies went through massive change the first round,
Yeah.
boy, had I been educated around this whole journey of what I'd hit at different times in my life, geez, where would I be today? So, I think the younger generation will have the benefit of all this.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing to think about. I kind of dealt with I think a lot of the listeners probably know at this point, but I was diagnosed with lupus in medical school, and it was really eye-opening for me to realize what I needed in the healthcare system wasn't really there. And it led me down had I not gotten that diagnosis, I'd be a surgeon today, like, my life would be very different, and it really led me down this whole path of learning what I needed and then wanting to be that for other patients, but what I needed at the time, we didn't have this kind of data even then. This was what, 14, 15 years ago now. And I did so much of it through trial and error. And then when I read my first health report based on my genetics and based on, really comprehensive labs and this personalized look at healthcare, I just teared up and I'm like, wow, like this was in an hour of what took me years to learn through the school of hard knocks, right? This made my body feel better. This didn't. This did this didn't. And I am grateful that I can pass that knowledge on now. I also think there was something to be gained from learning it the hard way, which people will always do. People will always find those lessons, of they'll feel the repercussions of their actions, I think. But it's so great that I think we can have these shortcuts now of looking at like you said, this data just wasn't out there. I mean, even the data that was out there was population-based data, right? Which if
Right.
that's not you, what does that matter? If that doesn't impact your biology and your genetic makeup, like it's just not as helpful for you, right? And now we not only have like personalized reports we can run, but we can do immediate personalized biofeedback through things like continuous glucose monitors. I'm curious, Susan. You've said you're data driven so many times. I'm really curious what the most helpful pieces of data have been that you found in terms of like what's yielded actual like change in action for you that your system has like trusted. Because I know a lot of people that are like, okay, give me a why. Like you're telling me to do this. I'm not going to do it just because you're telling me. Like I would like to know why and what that's going to do for me. Like what have been the most impactful pieces of data for you because we give a lot of data at Wild Health. And we recommend other pieces of data like the wearables, like Julie talked about the Oura Ring, continuous glucose monitors, other imaging we might order, et cetera, et cetera. So what just comes to mind as what's been the biggest you know, movers for you in terms of action that you've or things you wanted to take action on based on data you've seen?
That's a
And you
great
don't need to
question.
get specific. I just
Yeah.
am just curious what's hit home for you the most.
Yeah, like Jules and I we've done it all. Glucose monitoring, Aura rings, all these things. But what
Yeah,
drives her and motivates her is different for me. And for
sure.
for me, the Wild Health lab reports and looking at the not just a here and now snapshot, but over time how my numbers are changing
The
across
trends.
so many different things that I have a lucky enough to I have a concierge doctor, but she's not measuring all these things. Like, you go for
Mhm,
a physical, it's not measuring all these things. And then when I
mhm.
got the full one, I was like, "Holy cow. This gives me such a different view of where my health is and what I want to achieve." And then seeing that over time, boy, that is the biggest motivator because now you can pull and push on what you think might be the drivers of what's changing your A1C and what might be changing your cholesterol numbers. Before, it's like you have high cholesterol, they say, "Hey, here's a pill." But they
Yeah.
don't know what the baseline was, they don't know what's it. So, it's just that those labs that come out, I study them. I love them, and I love to see the trend over time. That motivates me more than any Aura Ring, more than, any glucose monitor. That really speaks to me. I
That's
don't know, it might
awesome.
be different for Jules.
Yeah, Julie, what's your experience been?
Yeah. I mean, I would say the Aura Ring is a huge driver for me. So I look at that thing every morning. The
Mhm.
big thing that I think that I'm focusing on now is recovery that I never used to think about. I think, in your 20s and your 30s, you're driving yourself really hard and you're thinking, I have to work out harder. I have to do more. I have to wake up earlier. I have to go to bed later. I have to work longer hours. You're pushing, pushing, pushing. And I think as I've gotten into my 50s, and again, being on this health journey, I've really changed my attitude. So now I'm really focusing more on what can I do to help my body recover?
Mm,
What can I do to, deal with stress? What can I do in terms of like breathing exercises? I'm really bad at doing all of that, like meditation and breathing. I mean, if I could improve on anything, it would be those things. But the
yeah.
Aura Ring just is a daily reminder to me to say, okay, Julie, you didn't take any time out yesterday to recover, to do sauna, to meditate, to just really sort of rest your mind a little bit. So I think that's a big thing that I've probably taken away because I was a pretty hard charger in these other areas, but I never really thought to take the time to think about my resilience and my recovery.
Yeah. One of the things I like to tell my patients is kind of have a mantra of recover as hard or harder than you train. And that's not only just exercise, that's, intensity at work, intensity at home. Like we have only so much battery life each day, right? And maybe if you didn't sleep well or you're sick or there's a lot of stress going on or you worked really long hours that day, like you're going to eat away at that battery life. And oftentimes for stress relief, people will work out and they'll kinda everything is hard charging, and that can really just if you don't have the ability to adapt to that stress, even if it's a good stress, it's just stress on the system, right? It's just inflammation and oxidative stress. If you don't have the ability to adapt and rebuild stronger, and so you have to have enough resilience, enough left in the tank to do that, so Aura Rings can be so powerful for this. I'm sure a lot of our listeners know at this point what it is, but it's gonna track your sleep, it's going to track your nervous system recovery, and give you a little bit of like, what is that battery life for you, right? Like, rather than just using your gut, because some of us may have a better intuition about that than others. And I'm guessing yours is honing in as you're focusing on these numbers more. I'm guessing you have a better gut instinct of how much you have in the tank now after looking at those. That's typically how it works, but it's going to check your heart rate variability, your sleep quality, your sleep duration, your resting heart rate, your temperature, your respiratory rate, and look at all these things together and look at, okay, how efficiently are you like toggling between your fight or flight or your resting nervous system? Like how low is your resting heart rate compared to normal at this time? Like are you ready to really push it in the gym and push it otherwise, or is today a day for restoration? And it really gives you a lot of data on that over time. So it's really great, like real time feedback, which is phenomenal. And I think what you said about not focusing on recovery in the past because your body used to be able to just go is so common that people feel that way, especially really successful people. They're like, man, and we get all these outside rewards from pushing hard, right? Like a lot of good things happen in life from pushing hard, but our bodies over time don't always tolerate that so well. And Susan, to your point, like a lot of that can change after having kids or going through perimenopause or menopause, like these big changes that women's bodies go through, which is a little bit different than men because there's these big moments where our physiology can be extremely taxed, and sometimes women feel changes during those times, because they're just such extra stressors. So, really, really interesting. I am curious to hear from you both, if you don't mind sharing, what have been kind of the big wins, in terms of things that looking at your health data in this way has helped you with, or having a community or a team to support you, whatever aspect of it has been the most helpful. But going through a program like this is a big commitment. I mean, it takes, and you guys have maintained this commitment for some time. So I would suspect that you're seeing some benefits, because it's a big commitment in a lot of ways. So I'm just curious what those benefits have been for you, and what, if you can pinpoint, has been the most helpful. Maybe it was the data that we talked about already, but what has been the most helpful in getting you there.
I'll start and I'll just say
Yeah,
I think
please.
just knowing that things like my muscle mass is staying where I need it to be or increasing a little bit with the use of things like DEXA scans, VO2 max tests, kind of knowing what my cardio output is. It's not really good. I feel like I need to raise it, but just knowing what it is, and so that I have that motivation to get that up. And then, like Susan said, the blood work is really motivational. So every 4 months or so, I get my blood work done with Wild Health, and then I talk about it with Carl, my doctor, and then sometimes even go over it in more detail with Ariana, my health coach. But that A1C number is really important. The B vitamin number is really important because I know methylation is really important for me. And then getting my health report rerun after I get my new labs done is very motivational to kind of see how the little bar moves in certain
Yeah,
areas and improves. So that's been great.
amazing. Muscle mass is a huge one. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Susan, how about you?
I think for me, maybe it's a little bit different, because we're talking about all these things and it can get really overwhelming for us
Sure.
mere mortals because there's Aura Ring, there's this, there's that, take the supplement. And so I think what has helped me the most is instead of feeling like you have to do all of these things all the time, it gave me a prioritized plan of like what are the biggest boulders you got to put in place first. Other things can be, small rocks, they can be
Yeah.
sand that you fill in between, but I don't have time to do all those things, amazing things Julie does. But tell me, what are the biggest boulders that are most correlated, that are going to move the needle the most? Let me hit those first. Those other things, if I can get to them, I get to them. And if I can't,
Mhm.
like, I'm not stressing about it. I just,
Yeah.
just want to
Well, to speak your language, Susan, what's gonna give you the highest ROI, right? I mean,
1,000%.
what's gonna really, really matter at the end of the day the most? And what's really cool about health is typically when you get those big boulders moved, typically there's a trickle down effect and you're improving all these other aspects as well. Because the thing about the foundation of our health, there are the 2% things. There are things that sometimes you just have to do something different, and sometimes we have people come into us and they're like, I consider them already like very optimized. They're at 94% health, something like that. And we're moving the needle in very small ways to get them really optimized. And then I have people coming to me that are maybe at 20 or 30% health. And I'm like, hell yeah, this is awesome because we can do like these huge things that they're not easy, but they're simple. And we can move the needle hugely with each metric. And then those are going to have a trickle down effect to these other aspects of our health. When you change, to your point, Julie, if you put on a lot of muscle mass, not only are you going to help your bone density, help yourself be less fragile as you age and help your longevity in that way, but you're going to help your metabolic health and your blood sugar, which is then going to lower your inflammation, which is then going to help for all of that's going to help burn fat more, which is in turn again going to optimize blood sugar and inflammation, which is going to reduce risk of pretty much every chronic disease on the planet. So there's this like amazingly powerful like domino effect when we get the big things like figured out, which I love that you brought that up in that way, Susan, because it can be so overwhelming to do like every little thing. And it's like, where do I even start? Like, what do I even do? And like you said, Julie, you were doing so many things, right? Like you were already doing all the things, or so you thought, to be healthy. So how do you, one, narrow that down to find out what are those things for your physiology? And then to your point, Susan, categorize it even further and look at like what's going to give you the highest return on investment, right? We only have so much time in the day, and you may have more time, you may not want to spend it all on your health, right? So what's going to give you the highest return on investment for your X goal? For you guys, maybe it's longevity and health span, like living well as you age. For somebody, it might be running a marathon or whatever else their goal is. But how do we get to that goal in the most efficient way. And we use data and a clinical team of support to do that. So I love, like, those are awesome answers. That's so cool. Um, okay, so we have a few more minutes. I think you both have really cool and different kind of whys and reasons behind what's really motivating you. I would like to dig into that just a little bit, if you guys don't mind, because I find human habits and patterns really, really fascinating and what motivates human beings, because we will so frequently sacrifice our long-term benefit for short-term gains as human beings. It's just kind of how we're wired oftentimes. And sometimes it takes getting to like a huge pain point, like a diagnosis or like a symptom or like a fear of watching somebody else go through something scary to be motivated enough to bypass that to where you're willing to put in effort for long-term gains. Some people are just driven by curiosity or data, like we've talked about. So it's really different for everybody, but I would like to dig a little bit into the why for the both of you, if you don't mind. Susan, do you wanna start this one for us and kind of let us know what at the end of the day was enough to motivate you to really like show up to these appointments, to invest in yourself, to
Yeah.
look at this data, which for some people never want to see it because it can be scary, right? Like it's vulnerable to look at this stuff. So what kind of shifted that for you, or has it always been there in
No,
terms of like being willing to show up to something like this?
yeah, I'm not Julie, where I'll wake up and know this is a priority, get up and move. Me, I push this way off because
Mm,
I always felt like there was something more important, and I'm
mm,
just a driven individual. And it wasn't until my joints were aching so badly, I could not get down the steps in the morning. I was going down on my butt. I was like surfing down the stairs. I'm like, this is not normal. And everyone kept saying, oh,
mm,
it's just age. It's probably a little arthritis. Everybody. And it
mm,
wasn't until I got to Carl and he's like, hey, look, you might need to go on HRT. There's some research around joint health and pain and menopausal symptoms and blah, blah, blah. You might want to touch your OBGYN. My OBGYN, who's amazing, but she was like, no, there's nothing there. And I love having Wild Health as this other resource because, Carl was like, Susan, you can also use one of our OBs, blah, 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 blah. Literally within 5 days of going on HRT, my joint pain literally disappeared. And I had a year's worth of joint pain that nobody could diagnose. Everyone was telling me it was autoimmune, and it wasn't. It was just my hormones were off because I was, menopausal. So it took like being almost debilitated. And now I've got this other issue with my back. It's just years of a culmination of not dealing with it. But again, it's Wild Health who's going, and Steve, my coach, and Carl saying, hey, Susan, these are the big boulders. Let's move these drivers first and get the big stuff knocked out. So that, to your point, Erin, the cascading effect of other things that might get remedied by this may be taken care of. But for me, it took, basically being immobile to really take it
yeah.
seriously.
So you weren't able, and you not only felt bad, but you weren't able to show up and do the things you wanted to do in life, right?
Yeah, I mean, I forced my way through it because I
Yeah.
will show up no matter what
Because you're a powerhouse.
because I'm crazy. I'm like
Yeah.
crazy, no question about it. But that comes to an end too, right? Because at some point you
Mhm,
can't just
mhm.
muscle your way through it. And so that's
Yeah,
where I was when I found Wild Health.
yeah, and are you comfortable sharing where how does this lens change for you growing up watching early losses?
Yeah,
Did that impact you? Does it impact you now? Like,
it
how does that change the
does.
lens of which you kinda look through your health journey?
Yeah, I think, I was 10 when my dad died, so and he was 40
Mm.
and he was like the healthiest guy you could ever meet, in all aspects. And so and all of these people were fairly healthy who died really young. And so mortality is a here and now. It's not, I think for a period of time you're like, "Oh, well you can die early and be healthy, so just keep doing what you're doing because
Like,
fate,
screw it.
screw it. Fate is
Yeah,
gonna do what it
that
is."
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but then I hit 50 and my kids are getting older, and then I'm like, "Oh,
Mm.
crap. I could outlive these people. I could actually outlive my 40-year-old dad and my 43-year-old brother who died
Oof,
and
I
my
got
50-year-old
goosebumps.
grandparent."
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, actually, I have something to live for longer. And it was exactly like Atia's book, because he was like, hey, I had all this crappy stuff going on and I made a change. I went into research. I did this. And I was like, well, if he can do it, why can't I do it? And then I met Carl, and then I was like, holy crap, this is not only I could do it, I can do it. And so those steps in the evolution of my journey for me were really meaningful. So now I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm living for life. I'm living for long-term longevity, as healthy as I can be. And
that's
so,
amazing.
yeah, exciting. It's an exciting journey, honestly.
Yeah, and you're kind of I mean, I love this. I have this vision of you that you're just like kind of blazing this trail in your family and in what a powerful like message to show your children too, right? Of because it is easy, I think, to say screw it when we see tragedy like that. I haven't experienced that specific example, but it can be kind of disempowering to see something like that. I would imagine to
Mhm.
see not only tragic and like just extremely sad, but also to see like, wow, you make all these decisions to be healthy and maybe it doesn't even matter, right?
Right.
I could imagine that that could feel like you don't have control over things anyway. Um, but it seems like you've really shifted things of like, okay, well, what could I control? Like, and some people might take it the other extreme. Like, some people might see something like that and hyper control their health, right? Which can have its own impact to health outcomes. But there's this happy medium where we can look at data and say, like, okay, what can I actually have a meaningful impact on with my daily choices? Um, be it medications or supplements or recovery or lifestyle or exercise or whatever it looks like. What can I move the needle on, to your point, right? And then hopefully let go of the rest that we can't control because we all have an element of that, right? Like there's always going to be
Yeah.
some mystery no matter how much data we get. But that's thank you for sharing that. I imagine this is extremely close to the vest for you, and I think most people have witnessed a loved one go through something that they hope to never go through or wanna protect their other family members from, and so I think it's probably extremely relatable and helpful to hear, so thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm happy. If it helps any normal person, I'm like the normal, I'm a common person. Julie's like the god to me. But I had a year of my pre-med son who didn't walk for a year and nobody
Mm.
could diagnose it. And we ended
Your son?
Oh, yeah. It
Oh,
was bad.
wow.
Yeah. And I wish Wild Health was around back then. We went every state, every top doctor, and they could not diagnose it. And we ended up going to Children's Philadelphia, and they were amazing. But boy, had I had Wild Health, how much more quickly that could have gotten diagnosed. It would have been a game changer. It would have been a game changer.
Right, and even just having this knowledge that, oh, there's another way of looking at things
Yeah.
than the traditional medical model, right? And I think it gives a lot of people, I won't say what it gives you, it gives a lot of people, and myself included, confidence in advocating for yourself and going against the grain a bit because it can be, especially if you're at really prestigious academic institutions, it can be a little bit intimidating. I mean, I had a situation like this arise with my son when I was pregnant with him where, my husband and I didn't feel comfortable about the way something was going, and, my gut knew that there was another way to look at it, but we were in one of the best institutions in the country, right? And we had these experts telling us this, and it can be a lot to go up against. So when you're like, you know what, there's actually data here, and there is another way to look at this, and there is nuance here, and a conversation is warranted and valid. There doesn't have to be just this black and white algorithm of the way people are handled. And so I love that you're coming at things from that perspective now and how beautiful that now there's going to be maybe a physician in your family one
Yeah.
day that has that backdrop as well because that hopefully will be really powerful in how he practices.
Yeah.
So I love that. Okay, Julie, share with me what a little bit about your why if you're comfortable because again, it's a big even if you love it, which I think you've self-proclaimed that you've always been interested and you're kind of a hobbyist in this, especially helping others, but it's a whole different animal, like looking under the hood of your own like biggest vulnerabilities and things to work on, et cetera, et cetera. So what kind of is your biggest driver? And you've hit on a few things that I think to me could seem like they could have impacted you, but I'd love to hear it from you.
Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest one is that I'm an older mom. So I had my son when I was 40. And I think when I had him, I thought, okay, I've really got to maintain my health to be active for him and with my husband. So into later years, he's just 14 now and I'm 56. So that's a big why. And then when I was diagnosed with MS 2 years ago, making sure that that doesn't stop me. So in making sure that I keep my inflammation under control. I mean, one of my weaknesses, I am not perfect. I like sugar. So I like sweets, I like food. So I have to keep reminding myself with podcasts, with books like Outlive, with books like Good Energy by Casey Means. I love that book too. And just listening to people like Rhonda Patrick talk about insulin resistance and keeping your glucose spikes down to a minimum, things like that. So I think that is a huge driver for me. Also, being a postmenopausal woman, I think I talk to everybody about HRT and sing the praises of it. I think every woman, if it works for them, should be on some sort of HRT, hormone replacement therapy. So, and that for me is a Jira protection agent. I don't really have any major symptoms of menopause, but I probably don't now because I am on HRT, but I'm on it to prevent the bone loss and to keep the muscle mass and to keep my hormones in check. So I think, again, that why is really maintaining my health as I'm getting older and my son is growing up and to keep our family healthy and happy and active.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm also curious if, as you've helped out with your mom as she's aging, and, I don't know if we've touched on this in this episode yet, but Julie also shared with me that in work, she witnesses some nursing facilities and assisted living facilities, so kind of sees a little bit about what chronic disease can do over time. Have either of those things impacted your motivation or how you look at those things?
Absolutely. So I work for an association that represents long-term care owners and operators. And I, from time to time, get into facilities and speak with our members who are running the facilities and their wonderful residents who they're taking care of, and we're helping them take care of them in a great way. So I do see that end of life a lot, and I see what our conventional medical system um, does and doesn't do. So, and then having a mother who is 86, who is very healthy at 86 and living independently in a great community near us, uh, it is very motivational. I'm her health coach. So I am her medicine 3.0. She goes to a
Cool.
doctor and gets her medicine 2.0. And then I'm the one saying, okay, you got to take some creatine, got to make sure you're taking your collagen. Are you getting enough protein? What did you eat today? I'm her nutritionist. I'm her health, her fitness coach. She sees a fitness trainer twice a week. And she asks, "Oh, do I
Nice.
have the money to do that?" And I say, "Yes, you have the money to do it." So we invest in health and wellness for my mother. So I definitely am motivated by that. I'm definitely motivated by that for sure.
That's incredible. And I mean, you kind of touched on this with your work too, Susan, like but I think you both hit on this point. If you don't invest in it now on the back end, I mean, not only will it be much harder in lots of ways, physically, emotionally, financially, etc., but like financially as well, right? Like being sick is more expensive than investing in your health and wellness almost every time. I'm not a money expert like some people on this call, but I have seen a lot of medical bills in my life and had medical bills in my family, and it's not cheap. even when you have really good health insurance. So, investing in yourself on the front end can feel scary, I think, to some people, because it's not always the way we look at things in our culture. I share with people sometimes, I feel like sometimes as a culture, we it's more it feels more normal to invest in the upkeep and maintenance of our vehicles than our bodies. People oftentimes are like, people wouldn't be surprised if you never got your oil changed and put the worst quality fuel in, or just didn't put fuel in or didn't put oil in. And your car just stopped on the side of the road. No one would be shocked, right? But for whatever reason, with our bodies, for some people it can be normal, and just as a culture, I think it can be normal to let things slide until things feel broken. And that's not a call out to anyone listening. It's just, I think we're kind of raised that that's normal in a way in our culture.
Yeah.
And it's rewarded, actually, I would go so far to say. So just a different way of looking at things. I really appreciate you guys sharing some super personal stories, both with your health, some of the health you've witnessed in loved ones. You guys are warriors. You are just doing so much. You've got busy work lives. You are moms. You're raising the next generation to be more aware of these things. You guys are showing up for yourselves and your health, and we're proud to have you as patients. And it was awesome to get to know you guys. Is there anything else that you would want to share, just as kind of like a final? I like to sometimes leave listeners with what's like a quick elevator pitch, like actionable thing that helped you or that you think could help someone else listening, that you've learned along this path that's really, like you said, move the needle for you, Susan. Can you think of anything that's like concrete that you could say, okay, start this tomorrow, and this could potentially have a positive impact? Obviously, I like to give the asterisk. We do personalized medicine, so a lot of this will depend on your data, right? We say it depends a lot at Wild Health because it does depend on your specific data. But I'd be curious what those things were for you guys, if there were some like quick and dirty.
My quick and dirty would be find your why. And do it in very digestible ways, which is like download the Wild Health podcast and just put it in the car. Everyone's driving to work. The more you understand the why, then I think it changes your motivation levels and might change your philosophy and how you move forward. So I always said, I'll sleep when I'm in a coffin. That was my mentality. And it's like completely changed, starting with sleep, because I just got educated. So
Yeah,
tip
no, we
would
showed
be-
you your sleep genetics and your Oura data, right, Susan? How about for you, Julie?
I would say read Outlive. That changed my life. It's kind of my
Nice. It's a
Bible.
good one.
And then I would just say protein, fiber, and omega-3 fatty acids. Those are my three,
Nice. Most
Jules,
people are very,
man.
very low on omegas when they come to us.
We should get some royalty on this Outlive today. What you know
Y'all
what I'm
really
saying?
should. Y'all really should. It's a good book. It's a good book. Well, this has been awesome. I appreciate you guys taking some time with me. I think it's so powerful. Sometimes we have these quote unquote health experts coming on, and it's really great to pick their brains. But I think sometimes it hits home a little differently when we can really see ourselves in what somebody is saying. And this could just be any one of us, like, coming on here and talking about how they decided to shift their health and what that journey looked like. So I think it's really amazing that you guys came on. And I have just selfishly really enjoyed getting to know the both of you.
Well,
Thank you,
thank you for
Erin.
having us. We
Everybody.
enjoyed it.
All right.
Thanks so much for listening to the Wild Health Podcast. If you want more daily health education, be sure to follow us on Instagram, which is filled with health optimization how-tos, grocery shopping lists, guided breathwork posts, myth debunking, and so much more. You can find us at Wild Health MD on Instagram.